What's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Cyrus King Show. And I'm just getting back in my groove. But once I get that groove, I'm going to drop a lot of videos, right? Once it's like the third day, 5 videos in 3 days, I don't even feel like that's a lot by my standards. I want to make your spiritual heroes look bad. But that's a whole nother story. This segment, I kind of want to make it short. I kind of wanted to go into why, in a lot of ways, um, when you deal with dead systems or systems that have been inactive spiritually, this is the difference. A lot of people confuse history. A lot of people confuse, I guess you could say, politics and social issues with spirituality. They're connected, but they're different. So if you want to go into the origin of like history and the origin of stuff, then Kemetic stuff is fine. It's fine. No question. If you want to have it as a symbol culturally, if you want to even let that bleed into politics, it can be effective as well. But when you start talking about spiritual stuff and running energy and things like that, and awakening the astral senses, then there's a problem. And it's not just Kemet. It's any, like Sumerian, Anunnaki, same thing. Anunnaki information, it's like fast food. People could find it fascinating for sure. But in terms of actually doing anything, energetically, you're not going to be able to do anything with that. And you can say, well, how do you know? Who's doing it? See the difference? When I talk about India, when I talk about Tibet, when I talk about sub-Saharan Africa, when I talk about the African diaspora in South America and the Caribbean, whether it's Brazil, Cuba, these places, Mother effers are doing stuff. Even if you wanted to say, I want to go and get a reading, they're doing stuff, right? They're actually doing stuff. When you're talking about Kemet especially, it's just, you're just talking. And like I said, and the Anunnaki stuff is actually worse than Kemet stuff. Like, that Billy Carson stuff people love, that stuff, the Anunnaki stuff is worse than Kemet. Because when you're dealing with ancient scriptures, you have to be able to get into the mindset of the culture of the people you're dealing with. I don't care if you have their records. I don't care if you say in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. I don't care. You would have to know what God means to that culture. You would have to know what heaven and earth means to that culture. You'd be surprised. A lot of people don't know this. In Egypt, they didn't just consider Egypt. When they said Egypt was the center of the world, they didn't consider Egypt just that spot of North Africa. They considered the whole world Egypt. That's the difference. When you go in certain lineage, certain Sufi lineages that are still connected to that old system, that's what they'll tell you. That's oral tradition. Even when you see the Hebrews, which become the Jews, go into the Torah and the Talmud and all these things, they still have an oral tradition. Every culture on the planet, I shouldn't say every culture, from the Aborigines to groups in Peru, Bolivia, who still practice their indigenous sciences, most of them don't even write stuff down. The ones that do have both. So when you just have the written information and you don't understand the cultural mind of the people that you're talking about, it's going to affect your ability to successfully weld energy in that system. And that's the difference. So hence, why if you notice, you have people who deal with Kemetic spirituality, what do they try to do? Merge it with Ifa traditions and certain Indian traditions. Why do they do that? Because the Ifa traditions or the Yoruba traditions, the Indian traditions are still alive. Cheche, it's still active. Right? It's still active. That's why they did that. That's the difference. So when you guys fall in love with people talking about ancient scriptures, unless you understand that cultural mind, like if you're from there's certain Sudanese traditions, Sufi traditions, that still kind of practice Egyptian, I guess you could say, spirituality hidden in Sufism. Yeah, some of them will tell you Earth is Egypt itself. Literally. Mecca and Israel is the worlds above that you try to recreate down here. That's what they'll tell you. Even some Gnostics even say that. Right? That's the difference. That's not written though. So for some people's perception of even saying Egypt, even saying Israel wasn't supposed to be a place you talk about on earth. Even if it is, you have to you have to recreate that under special conditions. You can't just be like the British government, some Zionists, and you create Israel. It's not how it works. Again, seems like that's profound information. It's actually common sense, but what happens is so many people haven't been practicing spirituality for a long time. And because they haven't been practicing spirituality for a long time, that stuff seems deep. That stuff seems vast. That stuff seems like mind-blowing. And that's why people stay on the same level over and over and over again. That's part of the reason why. And that's why, I mean, people have been talking about Kemet for years now, right? Now you see in Georgia an explosion of Ifa traditions. My only regret in that is that's his own world itself. Like, for whatever reason, people can't teach people that there's Bobby and Helen and Joseph and Mike. There's the political versions of them motherfuckers. There's the culture version of them dudes and them chicks. And then there's the spiritual version. Could be blended, but have to exist separately. When I can make a political video, I ain't thinking about spirituality. Hence why when I make a political video, I don't really get into the traditional conspiracy stuff that you spiritualists get into. I don't get into that. It's two separate things. And that is what ends up being hard for some people to understand. Because the concept of oral tradition is probably part of the reason why some systems get into this initiation stuff. Because they only give you that when you get initiated. Same thing with Buddhism or Hinduism. That's why I literally had a person, I said, stop. This is why I said you can't make this shit up. I literally said, people on the same level over and over again. And that's why some Eastern principles doesn't work in the West to go to the next level. I literally get a cat that says, it's fasting and meditation. That doesn't sound that hard to me. And I said, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I said, when another person said, an authority. I'm not trying to be an authority, sweetheart. I actually come from the real spiritual world. I got my clique. You not my clique. Right? You ain't an Obeah woman. You're not an Obeah man. You ain't from the Caribbean. You ain't from South America. And if you are, you ain't active. What I do, I'm doing this to create content and for charity. To give back. To help other people from other circles. Right? If you a Buddhist, you may pray with Hindus. If you a Buddhist, you may pray with other lineages of Buddhists, right? It happens all the time. If you're Wicca, you might have a service with some Hindus. Those are people who do voodoo. And help each other out, exchange information. That's healthy. But I don't care about being an authority to people who ain't from my circle. Sorry, sweetheart. I don't care. And that's the difference. That's the difference between me and a lot of spiritual cats you see. A lot of spiritual cats you see became spiritual reading a book. They ain't travel nowhere. They ain't go nowhere. They never even rub shoulders with initiates. They did none of that shit. Right? So when they're talking about this stuff, it's basically Amazon. Which is fine. It becomes a problem if you do that for 15 years though. If Amazon is your go-to for the spiritual world for 15 years, it becomes a problem. That's the difference. And something as simple with from the Hindus to the Buddhists, you think in African traditional religions, they don't know that everything is oral? They don't even write books like that. You don't get no real serious books on Palo and Ifa. No real serious books. And we know Ifa has been kind of infiltrated, so now you get a whole bunch of that stuff. But you don't really get serious books in that. It's not written down. So if I come and say, Hinduism, same. The Hindu stuff you see, that's why I said, when you have a bona fide Eastern teacher, there's actually stories of the Hindu gods from different I don't want to say angles, from different perspectives, where the same story could change. But only a teacher who's active from an active lineage will know that. That is not hard to understand. And when I say this, I don't say this to make a person feel bad to say, oh shit, I don't have that. I say this to say, hold your teachers up to a higher standard. I said this on YouTube Shorts. You people may not even see my YouTube Shorts. Stop making one-dimensional teachers waste your time. In the end of the day, spirituality is about changing your brain chemistry. That's what it is. You could change your brain chemistry with drugs, which I don't suggest. You could change your brain chemistry with active, energetic work consistently for years. After 7, 10 years, your brain chemistry changes. After a certain point, your body changes. That's why they say the same body you have when you do yoga is not the same body you have after yoga. So yeah, Kemet's older than India. Sure. India is active. Tibet is active. For my Afrocentrist brothers, let's not go there. Obia, Ifa, Palo, let's not go there. Bawati, Sangoma, let's not go there. We're going to go into Madagascar spirituality. Let's not go there. Let's not trade who got the biggest dick Afrocentric from the Afrocentric standpoint. Because all you guys, if you've been to the continent, you only been to the West. You only been to the center. You never been to the islands in the Indian Ocean. You never been to North Africa. You never been to South. And if you did it once. Let's not have that contest. I deal with the world, but we want to take Africa, we could take it in Africa. Easy. So let's not go there. So the simple context of this should be this. When you do spirituality, it changes your brain chemistry at will over years. Some people take the easy way out, doing drugs. Other people go into these pseudo-spiritual fast food philosophy, electromagnetic universe, blah, 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 Sumerian, Anunnaki text, blah, 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 Osiris, the Egyptians got it from the Christians, blah, 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 blah. You be in the same level. And if you say, how do I know you don't live? You just like everybody else. So here's the difference, though. When you see me talk about 10,000 subjects, right, and you don't know 3, says it all. I'm just saying. Whether it's politics, food, you see my podcast? You see my podcast resume? I had 6, 7 podcasts at the same time. We don't got to talk about spiritual shit. We gonna talk about real life. That's the difference between you and I. Not better. I have an understanding of the fact that you actually have to put in the spiritual work. And putting in the spiritual work doesn't mean paying someone to do your spells. That's not you doing the work. If I pay somebody to do spells for me, that's not me doing the work. So because you could do spells, that doesn't mean that you're a little bit better than a theorist. A little bit better. That's it. So, oral tradition, active spiritualities, giving respect when you see slave trade, traditions from Nigeria survive in Brazil and Cuba, and Trinidad, Puerto Rico, for after hundreds of years and still survive. Sometimes even some aspects of it, capoeira exists in Brazil. It don't even exist the same way in Angola. That's real talk. So, Cyrus King. Till next time, peace.